Welcome back to another episode of Ali Inspires. As always, our goal and our aim is to put in front of you so you can learn from some of the most inspiring artists, business people, entrepreneurs. And today we have a very special guest, an artist, actually the first Kuwaiti to ever be interviewed by BBC Hard Talk, the first Kuwaiti to have their art exhibited at the prestigious Christie's auction house, also the first Kuwaiti to have been nominated for the Pushcart Award in Poetry, and also the first Kuwaiti to have their art exhibited at the Venice Biennale. Please help me welcome Dr. Shurooq Amin. Shurooq, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. It's exciting to be at the place where all the magic happens.
Hopefully it's magical.
So I just want to start with this. You know, former professor at Kuwait University, an artist, a poet, a story, like a writer, and recently also a Pilates instructor. Like, how do you have all the time to do that and you excel in all of these areas?
Thank you. Okay, time, there never is enough time. That's the thing that people always say. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. So what you have to do is you have to really efficiently use whatever time you have. So for me, there are 24 hours in the day. I wake up and the first thing I do is I work on myself. I do whatever I need to do to write or paint or learn. Even sometimes I learn just different languages. I teach myself French, Spanish, really? Italian. I do that every single day, you know. Even if I spend 10 minutes on it, if you add up the 10 minutes over a year, you've got almost a language there, you know.
A lot of people, they complain about time.
Yes.
But like, and when I mention these areas that you do, so a lot of people, they do a lot of different things, but they don't excel in them. Like you reach a certain level where your poetry was, published, and you have a book and international, and of course, you're well known for your artwork and professor. So that's how do you excel in them?
I think it's about that old adage of whatever you do, do it to your best ability. Even if you make a cup of tea, make the best cup of tea you can, you know. No matter what simple thing you do in life, even if you're just making pizzas all day, make the best pizzas you can. And I follow that. Whatever I'm working on, I try to be the best at it that I can. I give it 100%. So if I am not able to give it 100%, I'm not gonna work on it. I'll put it aside, I'll park it. I'll come back to it the next day. So when I come to sit down and write, or when I'm in the studio painting, for me, I have to be in the zone. I have to leave the outside world behind. Because if you try to do so many things at the same time and spread yourself too thin in that particular moment, you cannot give anything the best of you, you know? So I try to not do that, and I try to, for example, I have, you know, my kids in the house, in my studio is in my home, and my kids are there. So I have a little sign that I put on the door that says, do not disturb unless there's an emergency. An emergency usually means blood. Okay, there has to be blood, otherwise don't come in. It doesn't mean
you have like a certain focus. Like when you set up a time, that's it. You're just going to focus on this thing, and no interruptions unless it's dire, of course.
Exactly, that's the thing. That's, I think, the secret to excelling in any one field is to give it 100% and be in the zone. Being in the zone, really getting into your subconscious. You know, really getting to that, the spirit, the essence of it. So you're living it, and you're fully unaware of what's around you. Yani sometimes I find
that's what they call flow, right?
The flow, the flow is so important. Yani sometimes I finish a painting and then later when I look at it, I have no idea how I did it. I don't know. Like I look at it and I think,
Interesting.
I don't think I can do that again. Like if you
So
ask
you're
me,
in the moment.
yeah, if you ask me to repeat that same painting, I cannot repeat it because I was in a flow in the zone at the time. And if I come to copy my own work, it's not going to have the same spirit. It'll have a different spirit. So it's important to reach that level. It's almost like meditation in a way, without even forcing it or meaning to.
Now, I know with the line of work that you do, and like I've seen your work, and you're a perfectionist. Like you have to be done a certain way.
Yeah.
That's the thing is a lot of people when they're perfection, it is hard to try something different. Like I remember when first time I snowboard, it's frustrating. Like watching these little kids, and you have to learn. You have to be willing to fail and embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I don't have a problem falling. I don't have a problem failing. That's, I think, the most important thing. Again, I love to try even new things like sports. Like, for example, surfing, scuba diving.
You should do kite surfing.
I have not tried kite surfing, but I'm very afraid of heights. I'd rather be on the water.
Oh, it's on the water.
Is it on the water? Okay, then I'll give it a shot. Okay. So I don't mind.
I like that spirit.
Yeah, I don't mind falling, and getting back up and trying.
You don't care.
You don't care, and you learn. It's ingrained in you that the only way to learn is by failing. Because when you fail, you've learned how not to do it.
Yes.
You do it again and you fail again. Okay, so I'm not going to do it like this either. You do it again and you fail again. I'm not going to do it like this. And then maybe fifth time, sixth time, seventh time, it suddenly clicks. And that's what happens, like riding a bicycle. If everyone remembers how they learned how to ride a bicycle,
you have to fall. Like you can't.
You keep wobbling and wobbling and wobbling, and then you fall and you hurt yourself, and then one day you're on it, and suddenly you're like going and going, and it's like, whoa, I can ride a bicycle, yay! And it all clicks just like that.
Now, we jumped in right away, so I want to talk a little bit about how you became an artist. Like, do you remember the first time you painted, or the first time? I'm really curious.
I don't remember the first time because it was organic. I was always sketching and drawing and doodling like all other kids with crayons and pencil and all of that. And then I remember I had so many drawings, just collections of drawings. And then one day my father said, Allah yarhamah, he said that there's so much work and I want you to show your work. Would you like to show your work? And I said, okay. I didn't know what that means. I was 9.
Wow.
I was 9. And I didn't know what that meant at all. So he went to an institution in Kuwait and asked them, they were having an exhibition. And he said, my daughter has like 200 drawings and I don't know what to do with them. What do you suggest? So they said, yes, bring some of them. We'll give her a little corner and let her hang her little drawings.
That is amazing.
So my first experience with an actual art exhibition, I was at the age of 9. They gave me a corner. Every artist was an adult. I was the youngest one there. And I remember standing in my school uniform in the corner. I have a photo of that. I'll show it to you.
I want to see it.
And I just have my drawings behind me. And people were coming up and asking me, what is this? And what were you doing that? And it was such an incredible feeling to interact with people and to be seen and heard and to kind of feel that you're even though they were not messages of any kind, they were just expressions of a child, but to feel that someone is interacting with you and asking your opinion of what you were thinking and what you're drawing was an incredible feeling. And my mom cut my very first interview in a newspaper, Arabic newspaper. She cut it, and I still have the interview with my picture with little shabasat, and it was just like 2 columns in the interview, but I was 9 years old, so I had a very early experience with art. And when I was 13, I remember my mom bought me my first proper easel and oil paints. So at 13, I started getting into the heavy duty because oil paints is the king of paints.
Now, did you take any classes, or you just on your own?
Nothing. I just experimented at home. I would go in the kitchen. I take, the metal thing you scrub the dishes with, and I try to see what effects it had on paper. I take the fork and I would, put some color and then make squiggles with the fork and see the effects of the fork. And I just use so many things around the house in the laundry room. I take detergent and mix it with paint and see what effect it has. And it would bubble up and be, even paler than watercolor. So it was all trial and error and personal experience. I never took a single class. It was all
Wow.
No. I tried one time to take a class in art. One time I went. And I was older. It was after college, before my very first solo show. Okay. I thought, let me go see what this artist has to offer, because the instructor was someone I liked his work. I went there. It was like a 3-day course or something. And what I discovered was the way they were teaching art was almost like paint by numbers. 1, 2, 3, follow 1, 2, 3. The sky is blue,
so
the grass is green.
Creativity.
No, there was no creativity. They want you to stay in your box. And the thing is, I don't even have a box. I'm not even out of the box. I don't have a box at all. So it's like, whoa, wait, what's going on? So I didn't like it. I didn't like to be dictated that the sky was blue.
So how old are you then?
I was probably like 19 or something. Before 9, maybe 18. Okay. Maybe 18. So I decided not to go, because I wanted.
It wasn't you, yeah.
It wasn't me. It was very rigid. It was very rigid. And it's interesting because I remember even when I was a professor at Kuwait University, I remember telling my students about the 2 formats of teaching, the West and the East versus the East. And this was a story I used to tell them about a class in the East, like in Japan.
Yes.
They have a picture of a cat on the board, and all 20 students had to copy the cat, the small circle, the big circle, and the tail.
So top down, basically.
Yeah, and in exactly that order. And then the class in the West, the teacher just writes the word cat and asks the students to draw their version of a cat. Yes. So this is the difference between, in the creativity in the West, and in the East you have the kind of following the system.
Yeah, so it's like what I mentioned, like follow my instructions versus think for yourself.
Yes. More following the system, and here is not following the system, non-conforming, and following your individuality. So it's a thin line. It's a thin line, yeah.
And I know your dad played a huge part in your becoming who you are today, and I know how it's amazing that he was there for you. Now, what is your thoughts for people who don't have such figures that will influence them, and how would they like become who you are without having that support? What's your recommendation?
Yes.
Because a lot of people, they're not as fortunate as you are, or have somebody that shows their work at age 9 or...
That's true. Having a supportive father was the most important thing in my life. He was, and he treated me and my brother as equals. So from a feminist point of view, he always taught me that I could do anything that a boy did. And so for me, I did it, and I try to do it better.
Only better, I know.
Yeah,
I was waiting for that.
Exactly. So I did everything. I played football, I skateboarded, I played basketball, bicycles, motorcycles, whatever they did, I did. But I was a girly girl, so I loved my Barbies, and I loved my dolls, and I loved role playing and these things. So I got the best of both worlds, really, Now, I lost him at a very young age. I lost him at the age of 11. But those 10, 11 years were formative for me. For kids or people who do not have that support from their families, I think you have to, because we live in such a different age now, it's a little bit easier because you can get it from role models. Yes. You can get online.
We didn't have that before.
We didn't have online before. If I wanted to research something, I had to go to the encyclopedia or be in the library physically and look through hundreds of books. Now you just Google from your phone, you know? So a lot of kids now do have the advantage of, yes, if they do not have that support in their family, they can have it in the outside world. They can Google and YouTube and listen on YouTube to inspirational people like yourself, people who are coming on YouTube and coming on the internet, giving TED Talks, for example, and other inspirational videos. There's so many motivational things of people who've been through exactly what this person has gone through, and how did they conquer it. So I think for the young generation now, that is their support. That is their backbone. That is their go-to, and they're lucky to have that, actually.
Okay, Shurooq, another. I know your background. Your mom is from Syria. Your dad is Kuwaiti. Has that affected you at all in your work today?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
How so?
Well, growing up, because after my father passed away, my mom had a lot of pressure from the family and a lot of eyes on her and how to raise us. So she became super strict with us. So I was actually, as a teenager, had a very strict influence growing up, and I rebelled against it. Now, had my father been alive, my mom would have stayed carefree and easygoing, and it would have been very different. But we all have our paths, and I feel that's how my path was supposed to turn. And so I became a very rebellious teenager, and that helped me actually in where I am today, because by rebelling, I wrote a lot of things, you know, anti-conforming, and drew very anti-conformist images, and it made me even, you know, the anger I had and rebellion I had, I use it constructively. I put it into action. I put it into learning.
The anger or the rebellion toward the norm, you mean, or conformity, or?
No, the anger and rebellion I had towards how my life suddenly 180 degrees changed. Because I lost my dad, and now suddenly I didn't have the privileges I had before. Suddenly I was looked like I had to be judged, and I was hearing things I didn't hear when my dad was alive.
You grew up very fast.
Yes. You know, don't wear this, and don't say that, and don't speak this way, and don't act this way. Girls don't do this, and girls don't say this. And so I heard a lot of that as a teenager. With my dad, I never heard that. I had a lot of freedom of speech and expression.
But it's like, now when you're saying this, I'm recalling what you said about your dad. I think if you didn't have that support, you probably could completely different.
Exactly. So it was important that in the first 10 years and the next 10 years, in the first 10 years I had that support, and in the next 10 years I had the opposite, the anti-support. So it's really pushed me to where I was. So my mom, you know, she did the best she could with what she had. But because she was Syrian, there was a lot of prejudice against how she was going to raise these Kuwaiti kids. So they're like, the Syrian woman, how is she going to raise these kids? So she had to really go out of her comfort zone to be something she's not, to please people.
She'd probably be more strict than she normally is.
She wanted to please the family and please society, and by doing that, she was extra strict on us. So now this continued for a few years, and then recently, in the last 10 years, I would say it affected my work because of politics. A lot of my family in Syria had to leave because of the war. And my uncle would come back to Kuwait sometimes and talk about things that are going on there. And this influenced me so much. A lot of it came into my show, It's a Mad World.
So it came
a lot
into
of
art.
the images. A lot of the images in It's a Mad World are Syria. Images from Syria that he would bring. Actually, he didn't bring back. He tried, but they would take his phone away from him if it had any pictures of anything around him. But I use images from the internet, from online, and I added the elements that I heard from him directly.
Now, that brings me to my next question: is how do you come up with your subject matter? Like, how do you, when you're going to go in front of the like a blank paper when you're going to paint? Where does the inspiration come from?
There's so much to say.
Because your stuff is really meaningful. There's a message behind everything. It's not just a pretty picture.
No. Every painting has a very specific message. The first message that you see is very clear. It's like, whoa, okay, you see the message. But then you delve into the layers.
Shocking at the beginning, yes.
The first one is the shocking image, which is the message you get right away. But then you delve into the deeper layers, and you look at all the symbols and the details, and you realize all the other messages and everything else is multi-layered, and each one is a message into itself. It's like a big spider web. It's all connected. It's all around me, Ali. It's all around me. It's every single day when I go out or something happens or I hear the news or I go through experiences, things that are happening around me. I use all of that. It's all personal experiences.
So when you're going around, do you write in a notebook that you think about it later on, or you just come here and then you?
I don't sketch.
Yeah.
I don't sketch anything.
No, I don't mean sketch.
Yeah,
like,
but I do write.
An idea or
always.
Yeah.
I have I have a notebook in every corner of my house because sometimes you have dreams, and if you go back to sleep, you wake up 3 hours later, you forget it. So for me, when I have a dream, I wake up even when I'm groggy and sleepy. I'll write it in the dark, and sometimes the writing is ineligible. You can't even read the writing, but I know it.
Yes.
You know, and I go back to sleep. A lot of this subconscious, a lot of these notes, inspirations, at the traffic light, I see something. It's like, oh my God, wow. And I quickly get my handbag out. I quickly, in the traffic light, write it down and I put it away. If I don't have the option to write, for whatever reason, I'll take a picture, a quick screenshot, I'll take a photo with my phone and I'll write it later. I use writing as the first stage before I actually start the painting. And even when I'm painting, I don't sketch. I paint right away. It's the paint comes on.
It's probably a different subject, but it's interesting what you mentioned, that you have a notebook next to your bed, and then when you wake up, I'm reading this book about why we sleep and why we dream, and one of the major parts is creativity.
Yes.
So that's a
amazing.
big part.
Amazing that you said that, because creativity and the flow we were talking about comes from the subconscious.
Yeah.
It really is the subconscious. Why do people get so much benefits from meditation? Is because you're reaching into your subconscious while you're still awake. Now, a lot of people sleep and dream, but they're not lucky enough to absorb from that their creativity.
And sometimes they don't record it. So a great idea could just go away.
Exactly. But it's, for me, I'm trying now to get it more into raising my frequency also,
How do you
consciously.
mean?
So for example, let's say I'm thinking of a problem. And as soon as you think of a problem, you kind of get a sick feeling in your gut. You don't feel good. You feel a little bit like you feel bad. That's lowering your frequency. And if you continue the rest of the day with this low frequency, you spiral downwards and you attract things to you at that low frequency.
So how, if you feel yourself going down that spiral, how do you go back up?
You start doing whatever it takes to bring you up. Whatever makes you happy.
What drives you?
What drives me?
What inspires you?
Just to be alive. Do you know how miraculous it is that we're alive? It's a miracle. So what is the alternative, to live miserable? The alternative to living miserable is death. That's the only other option. So there's no choice but to live your best life.
And
if you really think about it, what choice do we really have? Everybody's searching for their purpose. Everybody's searching for their meaning in life. It really comes down to waking up and doing the best that you can on that day. And if possible, within your day, helping as many people as possible would be a great bonus, because it makes you feel good to help people. And that's, I don't want it to sound cheesy, but it really is, it boils down to, I love life. I love being alive. And that doesn't mean that I don't get depressed sometimes. I don't get sad. I don't have bad days. Sometimes I bawl my eyes out, for no reason. And that's just human nature. That's normal. It's normal to be human, but allow yourself the full explosion of your feelings.
Yes,
if you feel sad, don't repress it. Go have a good cry. Let it out. You need to let that energy out, because if you keep repressing it, it's just going to bring you back to that low frequency we're talking about. So for me, it's just, I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm so grateful to be here in the moment. I love thinking about the future. I'm glad I'm here too. I love thinking about the future, but people should not get so consumed with the future that they lose living in the moment.
The now, yes.
You have to find the balance. Yes, I love to dream about the future and wonder where my future is going to be. I love to think of myself in a house on the beach in Spain or something. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm not enjoying my best life here in the now, because that's all we have and that's all that matters right now,
You're very well known. And the subject matters that you talk about are really important, and some of them are controversial, where a lot of artists, they choose the easy route. Why do you choose the difficult ones, the topics that...
Why? That's a good question. Why do I choose that? I guess for me, that's part of my purpose in life, is that I feel like I was born and raised in Kuwait as a Kuwaiti, yet at the same time, there's a spirit in me that's very different, that doesn't feel like it belongs. So this sense of identity crisis that I have, of being part of my country, loving my country, I love my country so much, but at the same time, I feel like I'm more of a citizen of the world. I feel like my spirit is such a free spirit that I cannot be in this one place. So I feel that part of my mission in life, part of my purpose in life, is to help my people in my country progress forward, make Kuwait better. And as ironic as it may sound, what I do, I believe, for the long term, for the future, will make it better, because I'm helping open people's minds to broaden their horizons, think of things they wouldn't normally think about, tackle subjects they would sometimes consider controversial or taboo, discuss issues that they feel embarrassed to discuss,
or
scared to discuss. So I'm trying to really hammer at those layers of fear and shame and maybe not belonging or not not being able to be free, so to speak. Freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I understand there are limitations, and I understand respecting those limitations. There is a balance. You can still say what you want at the same time respecting where you are. I have a painting, for example.
Who does, sorry to interrupt, but anybody who's going to do something great in their life, they're always pushing the
boundaries. You have to.
There's I don't know if there's a guy named Jose Rizal. He's like the champion in the Philippines. Because of him, he wrote a novel. Because of him, of course, he was executed by the Spanish.
Yeah.
But because of him, Spain.
Yeah.
The Philippines was liberated from Spain. And one of the things he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he says, he was talking to a friend, and he's like, nobody understands what you're doing here. Nobody understands the depth. He's like, well, one day, like 100 years from now, 200 years from now, when somebody looks back, I was like, there were some really good people. There was some, that was a good writer. He had a message.
Exactly.
So we're excited to have you. You're doing that same thing. Doing what you're doing, all the success that you had, all the challenges that you had, have you ever thought about giving up?
Yes, I'm only human. I've had many dark moments where I just decide, it's too much. Sometimes I get messages that are like attack messages, and it just brings you down sometimes. And sometimes it gets overwhelming. There's so much going on at the same time, including with your private life, your family life. So you just there are moments where you give up and you just sit there and but what I do is, like I said earlier, I give myself a good cry. I give myself a day off, 2 days off, sometimes a whole week off where I do nothing but whatever I please. Maybe I'll just spend a whole day in bed watching TV, doing nothing. Maybe I'll take a trip and go off for 3 days.
So you go back to lifting yourself up.
Yes. I take myself out of the situation. I have to get myself out so I don't keep spiraling down. I take myself out of the situation, raise my level of frequency, visualize my future, be grateful, bring myself back to basics, be grateful for the food, be grateful for the home, be grateful for friends, for family,
think about all the good
life.
Things,
really focus on the small things that don't cost any money,
blessings
that we take for granted. And that kind of really usually brings me back, and I feel great
centered,
after that. Then I'm centered again, I'm balanced, and you keep going. So it's normal.
Don't give up, okay?
No, never give up completely, no.
Now, the last question. We could go a lot longer, I know, but last question. Doing what you're doing and your experience, what advice would you give young artists, writers that are doing something out of the norm, that is different, that is maybe having a strong message, that are facing a lot of these challenges with society, with what's going on? What is your advice to them?
For people who are going out of the norm already and facing challenges, well, like you just said, they should not let it affect them negatively. They should not let it affect how they think. It's such a basic message, but you have to really, really, really believe that what you're doing is the right thing. You have to really believe what you're doing matters. If you stop losing that message that I matter, you matter, he matters, she matters, everybody has a purpose, everybody matters in their own small way. Because what is the world but a compilation of people, an amalgamation of brains, an amalgamation of souls, an amalgamation of bodies? That's what we are. If every single human being on the face of the planet died, will there be progress? No. Will there be anything? No. So we all matter. It's like the idea of voting. Every vote counts. Sometimes there's that one vote that sways you. So of course you matter. And it's so important to believe that what you're doing matters. What you're doing, you have to believe in it. There's going to be times when it's going to be so hard and you're going to be so frustrated that it's easier to take a different path. If you want to try something else, try it, but don't give up on what you feel is your soul's purpose. Never give up on that.
So you matter. What you do matter. Your art matters. Shurooq, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
and
for
for
having me.
the knowledge and all of the points that you shared. I know this is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure is mine. This is the end of our episode. I hope you learned something valuable today. One thing that I got is, remember, the opposite of courage is not cowardice. The opposite of courage is conformity. Sometimes if you're going to do something great, expect there are going to be challenges, and sometimes you're pushing the borders, or you're pushing the line forward. That's what it means to be a leader. See you again, another episode of Ali Inspires.